A couple years ago, I did a Weird Products episode focused on Mac, and in it, I talked about how Mac is in a very unique position when it comes to Cars characters. You see, Mac is a pretty significant character in the Cars series who's a hauler. He's a truck that carries other cars, and nearly every Cars toy line out there has taken advantage of this, making Mac toys that either carry other cars or turn into some sort of playset that you could use your cars in. Mac is kinda like a perfect storm when it comes to Cars toys. Car carriers and mobile playsets are always super popular, and Mac is a recognizable character that you can use to make these already popular toys even more desirable. There's so much Mac stuff out there, and I can't wait to look at some more of it today. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Weird Products. Today, it's time for Weird Products Mac Edition Part 2. Let's get started. Well, like I said in the intro, most Mac products are made to carry other Cars toys or turn into playsets. I wanted to find some Mac items that specifically don't do that, since I didn't really do that in the last episode, and there are quite a few Mac items out there that simply exist to be a representation of the character and nothing else. For example, this Mac 3D puzzle. We're no stranger to 3D puzzles at this point in Weird Products. There are so many out there for some reason. These kind of half puzzle, half model kit things where you could put together a simple to build three-dimensional representation of a Cars character. There are an absolute ton for some reason. And this one of Mac doesn't look half bad. Of course, there are all of these 3D puzzle parts sticking out of him, but I mean, you bought a 3D puzzle kit. That's what you're signing up for, you know, that's how it's going to look. But really, this looks like a pretty good representation of the character of Mac. I love that they even went out of their way to give him his hood ornament. That's something not even the Mattel item has. It also looks like his wheels are not puzzle pieces, they seem to be actual functioning wheels, which is super cool. So yeah, not bad. You know, we talk about these 3D puzzles in this series so often, maybe one day I'll have to buy one for myself. Hey, wait a minute. What you're building here is Cars 1 Mac, but the image on the box is Cars 2 Mac. Can't buy this, guys, sorry. Minor error spotted, I gotta burn every copy now. There are actually quite a few Mac plushes out there, and while several of the ones I found while searching for this video are knockoffs, this one here is an official one released for Cars 3. And as far as Cars plushes go, this is not a bad looking one at all. This is clearly based on Mac's Cars 3 design, and I've said in the past that by the time of Cars 3, Cars plushes started to, for the most part, really look like the characters. You can see they got a lot of the more complex shapes of Mac's design. Probably the worst part of this is the face, which just looks pretty goofy, but I can't say it doesn't look like a face Mac would make. Like, that is a pretty in-character expression for him, not gonna lie. But if this 10-inch Mac plush is just too big, don't worry, he's also available in keychain form. As you can see, the keychain follows pretty much the same design as its larger counterpart, but it is significantly less detailed. These big plush bag clips are always popular, no matter what the series they're based on is, but I feel like having one of Mac is just so inconvenient. He's just such a strange shape to attach to something. Dear Marvel rivals, I know you just added those weird keychains that hang off of characters. Please add Mac in the next update, thank you. You know what else is a super popular product you see all the time? Those giant cardboard cutouts. You often see them for superheroes or celebrities. Here's Mac from Cars. Finally, you too can live out your dream of having a large cardboard PNG of Mac with you at all times. Think about all the uses. You could keep him in your room so he could watch you while you sleep. You could stick him inside of the passenger seat when you're driving your car and trick the police into thinking you belong in the carpool lane. Just be aware when you order this product that the human man is not included. All jokes aside, I don't know who would ever want to buy this. Isn't the point of those big cardboard cutouts the fact that they're like life-sized representations of characters or famous people, right? This is nowhere near life-size. I hate to break it to you guys, but this is not the real scale of a Mac truck. Unless it actually is, and the guy that's standing next to Mac is actually a giant. I guess that is a possibility. Moving on into some of your more classic traditional Mac toys, let's talk about Mac's release from the Shake and Go line. Everyone knows the Cars Shake and Go toy line. It's a insanely comprehensive Cars toy line that lasted for several years. You would shake the cars, they would talk and drive around on their own, and their Mac had a pretty unique play feature. He has a built-in launcher, something that's not new at all for Mac toys, but the way this one works is pretty cool. His hauler actually unfolds and becomes this long path that the car can be launched down. And while I've been showing the Cars 2 version of this Mac throughout the segment, there are actually several different releases of Shake and Go Mac. Like this one that comes with, I think we should give these two some privacy. In the last episode, we looked at several Mac carriers for the Mattel Cars diecast line, but this one is actually for the Tomica cars from Japan. The Tomica Cars toy line makes cars in a slightly smaller scale, 1/64th scale actually, which is the size of Hot Wheels, and they made this Mac, which is not only a Mac diecast carrier, it's also remote control. So you can move it around and bring your cars wherever you want, which is honestly really cool and pretty funny as well. It seems to hold 8 cars total, with 4 at the top and 4 at the bottom, which actually can drive out thanks to Mac's door being able to open and turn into a downwards ramp. I would assume that the remote can open and close the door. If not, that's pretty lame, but I think it probably would be able to do that. This item is from 2019, so it looks pretty accurate to Mac. Of course, the proportions are a little goofy, but you know, it's not trying to be 100% accurate. A pretty cool product concept, one that I'm glad to see some company out there made, since it's a pretty obvious one to do that I haven't really seen done before, remote control Mac carrier. This next item comes from an, I believe, Dutch company called Smoby. It's a plastic Mac that comes with a McQueen that you can tinker with different tools included in the set. Using Mac as kind of a mobile tool station is something that many Cars toys have done over the years. In fact, in part 1 about Mac, we took a look at an item with a pretty similar concept made for Cars 3. Also in part 1, we took a look at this hilarious Mac tool station that came with a McQueen you can disassemble, which, funnily enough, was also made by this same Smoby company. They really specialize in McQueens that you could take apart with plastic tools. And speaking of tools, in this older Cars 1 Mac tool set, the tools are hidden under Mac's cab. I can't decide if that's genius or terrifying. Other features include pretty much all the stuff you would expect. You could fill McQueen up with gas. There are different things where you could kind of do a checkup on McQueen. There's a big go button. There's also a handle to carry around Mac. I always love when they have Mac toys that include handles. And there's even a screen letting you know what's going on in the race. Super nice of Mac to have a race leaderboard installed. I wonder how he did that. Like so many other Mac products, this item has been released several times with several different variants based off of Mac and McQueen's different looks from throughout the Cars series. You'd probably expect the next one to be a Cars 2 Mac with a Cars 2 McQueen, right? Well, it looks like that doesn't exist, but there is an Ice Racers one. Yeah, so a good more than half a decade after the original Smoby Mac came out in 2009, they made a new one based around the Ice Racers line, of all things. It's insanely weird that they chose to do this, but it's also really cool. This is the only time I've ever seen any sort of Ice Racers Mac merchandise, and it's fun to see how his design was adapted to this toy line. I love the nice splashes of light blue all over him, which fits perfectly with the Ice Racers line, as well as his blue wheels and snowy tires. And despite there being a good 6 years between incarnations of this product, there are no updates or upgrades to the Smoby Mac at all. It's the exact same as the previous 2009 one, except now it has decals regarding the Ice Racers and some other slight color changes to match that. McQueen's diagnosis screen is different, now featuring an image of his Ice Racer counterpart instead. The leaderboard features Cars 2 racers instead, with McQueen, Cerule, and Schnell listed, and the entire inside is decked out with Ice Racers posters and stuff. But in terms of molding and play features, this thing is the exact same as the previous one. Mack and McQueen even have the exact same faces. Yeah, Mack has the same face, and despite the fact that McQueen has been changed to his Cars 2 body shape, he too has the exact same facial expression. A shame, because that could use some work. But it doesn't stop there, as the following year, Smoby made a Carbon Racers Mack as well. And this is the exact same deal as the last one, just refits the pre-existing Mack toy with new Carbon Racer decals. Although this time they did give McQueen a new and much better facial expression. But one weird thing I noticed about this version of the product is the leaderboard. Here, McQueen's name is written McQueen, but the other two racers used their first names, Miguel and Max, instead of their last names like the previous one did, where it showed just Schnell and Cerule for Max Schnell and Raoul Cerule. I then realized that the original version of this said McQueen, King, and Chick, so, they used Chick Hicks' first name and McQueen's last name. There's really no consistency here. For some reason, they keep changing if they use the first or last names for everybody, but McQueen just stays McQueen. It's always his last name. Smoby actually also made a remote control Carbon Racers Mack, which is, again, a really weird item to make. While the trailer has pretty much the same decal as the tool cart version, the cabs are actually pretty different. The Disney Store also made their own version of a Carbon Racers Mack, and it too has a different design from these two Smoby ones. Seems like there was no distinct design that all the toy companies were given to follow when making Mack, and they all ended up a bit different. In 2017, for Cars 3, Smoby Mack finally got an upgrade, with a new incarnation of the toy called Mack Truck Simulator, themed, of course, to Cars 3. This version of Mack now opens from the back. It's very similar to the mobile tool cart Mack that we took a look at last time, which was also a plastic Mack released for Cars 3 with a sort of McQueen garage inside. I'm glad they finally decided to update the Smoby Mack design and not just repaint the previous one. Of course, the main new feature of this version of Smoby Mack is the race simulator inside of him, a very Cars 3 appropriate choice. Cars 3 treated the concept of racing simulators like they just found the fountain of youth. Like, guys, it's not that interesting. The McQueen included can be disassembled. You can take him off of his chassis, remove the wheels, take out the engine, and put them all back in with the included plastic screws and tools. This is something that you could do with all of the Smoby McQueens that come with these Macks. It's just hard to find images of some of the older ones, but this was always a feature. You know what wasn't always a feature? The fact that you could do this to Mack as well. As you can see, on Mack's hood, there's a pretty obvious plastic screw, and you could take that off and just split Mack into several pieces. I don't know what the purpose of doing this is. It's kind of weird to have the Tool Station Mack also completely come apart, but I'd be lying if I said that as a kid I wouldn't be taking this guy apart all the time. But what if I told you that I found one more Smoby Mack? That's right, there is still another one out there. So far we've seen Cars, the Ice Racers, the Carbon Racers, Cars 3. It's only fitting that there's also a Smoby XRS Mud Racers Mack. I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw this, I thought it was a bootleg. The face on this is just so horrendously bad. But no, this is real, it's an official one, and it is, of course, a repaint of the Cars 3 Smoby Mack. As you would expect, it comes with a souped-up XRS Mud Racer McQueen and a bunch of new mud racing decals all over the walls of Mack. It keeps the simulator, of course, because it is just a repaint of the Cars 3 version. And while they did a pretty good job at swapping out the decals to be XRS themed, even swapping out the simulator decal, now having Jackson Storm there, unfortunately it doesn't seem like they made it a mud racing Jackson. If you couldn't already tell from the, 5 versions of Mack we've looked at, these guys love to milk a concept. So not only is there this XRS Mack, there are a good 4 or 5 other XRS products that Smoby has made using this same customizable McQueen. But easily the weirdest one of these is another one that has to do with Mack. Yes, Smoby made more than one XRS Mack item. Remember how earlier in the video I said that these were the guys behind that weird Mack tool stand that we talked about in part 1? There's an XRS version of it. That's right, now you could have the exact same Mac tool station, but with a few XRS stickers and an XRS McQueen included instead. Look, I appreciate the commitment to making this an XRS-themed Mac. I especially like the fact that they made the wheels muddy. By the way, yes, you could actually roll this thing around, which is very clever. I just don't know what kid would want this over a regular Cars 3 Mac. I'd love to know the difference in sales between XRS Mac Tool Station and Cars 3 Mac Tool Station. I think the main incentive for a kid would be the fact that this Mac comes with the XRS McQueen, the big souped-up off-road McQueen, instead of a regular one, but like I said earlier, Smoby sold this exact McQueen in like 4 or 5 other ways. Man, there are so many weird Disney Cars XRS products.
Say that again?
And there you have it, guys. This has been Weird Mac Products Part 2. I always love taking a look at Mac items. Toy companies get so creative when it comes to adapting him in different ways, and we're really just scratching the surface with Mac. I'd love to talk about even more weird Mac products again at some point in the future, but that's gonna wrap it up for now. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.